Welcome to the deep dive. So if you're learning English, or maybe just use it a lot, you've probably noticed something a bit, puzzling. Native speakers, they often seem to play by slightly different grammar rules than the ones you find in textbooks.
Oh, definitely. Something a lot of people pick up on.
They bend things, skip words sometimes,
Yeah.
and somehow it sounds totally natural when they do it.
It really does. You learn the rules, you try hard to stick to them, and then you hear a native speaker say something and you think, wait, did I miss something? Was that okay?
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're digging into some really interesting ideas from a resource called The Hidden Rules of English.
And just to be clear, this isn't about throwing out all the grammar you've learned. Not at all.
No. It's more about understanding how English is actually used day to day by people who've grown up with it, sort of instinctively.
Right. So our mission today really is to explore these apparent contradictions. Like, why do native speakers seem to ignore standard grammar sometimes?
And maybe even more usefully for you listening, can you ever use these more relaxed forms? And how do you do it without sounding, wrong?
That's the crucial part. When is it okay?
Okay, let's get into it. Why do native English speakers seem to get this kind of grammar leeway sometimes? The first idea from the hidden rules is actually pretty basic.
Yeah, it comes down to speed and efficiency.
Speed and efficiency.
Language, fundamentally, it's about getting a message across, right? And often the quickest way involves a little bit of, let's say, linguistic streamlining.
Like shortcuts.
Kind of, yeah, like an understood shorthand between speakers.
Okay. The source gives a classic example. Instead of saying the full, "Are you coming?" you just hear,
You coming?
Right, you coming, The meaning's totally clear, and it's one word shorter, saves a bit of breath.
Exactly. And it's not just syllable counting. In informal chats that is often just obvious from the situation. Dropping it can even signal, closeness, ease. Another huge one is, do you want to go? You almost never hear the full phrase in casual speech. It just becomes,
Wanna go.
wanna go. Yeah, the do you want just kind of melts together. It's all about getting the core message out quickly when you're just talking casually.
That totally clicks. If you're just chatting, you want quick understanding, not necessarily a perfectly crafted sentence every single time.
Precisely.
Which leads us straight into the second big reason these rules seem flexible, the context. Specifically, informal settings.
Yeah, the situation matters
Yeah.
a lot. How strict we are with grammar often changes massively depending on who we're talking to and where we are.
So like with friends versus in a job interview.
Exactly. In relaxed, informal situations, that pressure to be perfectly grammatical it tends to ease off.
The hidden rules uses the example, me and him went, instead of the correct he and I went.
Yes. A classic.
We all learn he and I in school, probably. But you hear me and him constantly in everyday speech.
And it's fascinating, isn't it, how common that is in informal talk. Technically, it breaks the subject pronoun rule. But does it sound wrong when you're just hanging out with friends? Usually not.
Sometimes the correct way can even sound a bit stuffy.
It can. Depending on the group, saying he and I went to the pub might sound a little overly formal, maybe even slightly pretentious. It shows language isn't just rules on a page, it's social. It's about fitting in.
And here's a really cool bit from the source. Get this. Even Shakespeare.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, he wasn't always sticking to the grammar rules either. Sometimes he'd bend them just to make his lines flow better for rhythm.
That's a brilliant point. It shows that even in, high art, sometimes the sound, the rhythm, the overall effect, that can take priority over being 100% grammatically rigid.
Okay, so we have speed, informality. What's the third reason native speakers might break these rules? This one's about the language itself.
Right. It's about the sheer diversity of English, regional and cultural nuances.
Dialects and different kinds of English.
Exactly. English isn't just one single thing. There are many varieties, many dialects, and they've developed their own grammatical structures. And these are perfectly valid within that community.
So what looks like a mistake in one type of English might be completely standard in another.
Precisely. The source mentions African American Vernacular English, AAVE.
Okay.
And the example is he be working. Now, to someone only used to say standard American or British English, that might sound wrong.
Because you'd expect he is working or he works.
Right. But in AAVE, he be working has a specific grammatical meaning. It indicates something habitual, something he does regularly. Standard English uses different ways to show that.
So it's not an error, it's just a different grammatical system for expressing a certain meaning.
Exactly that. It's crucial to see these not as mistakes, but as systematic differences that come from the rich, complex history of the language and its speakers. These dialects have their own internal logic.
Okay, this is all making a lot more sense. We've covered why native speakers might do this, but now the big question for you listening.
The practical side.
Yeah. When can you maybe adopt some of these relaxed forms without sounding weird or incorrect?
This is where the hidden rules give some useful pointers. Guideline number 1 is all about context again, specifically casual conversations.
Okay, so talking to friends, colleagues informally.
Exactly. In those situations, using common contractions like gonna for going to or kinda for kind of can actually make you sound more natural, more fluent.
I remember noticing gonna everywhere. It felt like a key to sounding more like a native speaker in conversation.
It often is. But, and this is important, the emphasis is on spoken English here.
Right. Not for formal writing.
Generally, no. You want to avoid gonna, wanna, kinda in things like important work emails, academic essays, formal reports. In writing, especially formal writing, sticking to the standard forms is usually expected.
Okay, good distinction. Casual speech, yes. Formal writing, probably not. What's the second guideline?
This one's about something often tricky for learners, phrasal verbs.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Pick up, turn down, look into, all those.
Those little combinations of a verb and a preposition or adverb, they can seem random sometimes.
Definitely.
But native speakers use them all the time. And often, we prefer them over a more formal, single-word equivalent.
The example given is great. Pick up the phone versus...
Lift the receiver.
Nobody really says lift the receiver
anymore,
do they?
Not usually in everyday chat. Pick up the phone is just so much more natural, more common. Phrasal verbs often carry this everyday feel, this idiomatic quality. Getting comfortable with them is a big step towards sounding more natural.
Good tip. Okay, so use contractions informally, embrace phrasal verbs, but are there rules you should never break?
Absolutely. And that's the third guideline. There are some core grammar rules that, if you break them consistently, will likely just make your English sound incorrect, no matter how casual the situation.
These are the non-negotiables.
Pretty much. The hidden rules flags a couple of key ones. First, subject-verb agreement.
Making the verb match the subject, like he goes, not he go.
Exactly. You need that S on the third-person singular verb in the present tense. While you might hear a native speaker drop it in super informal fast speech sometimes, as a learner, you should always aim for she goes, he runs, it works. That's fundamental.
Got it. Nail that one down. What's the other one?
Correct. Past tense forms. Especially, again, in writing or more careful speech.
So using I saw instead of...
Instead of I seen or we went instead of we gone. Using the incorrect past participle, like seen as the simple past tense, will generally stand out as an error. Stick to I saw, I did, I went.
Okay, so subject-verb agreement, correct past tense forms. Always follow those.
Those are your bedrock.
Right. So we've talked about why natives bend rules, and when you might and when you definitely shouldn't. Let's try a quick practice exercise for everyone listening, drawing from the hidden rules.
Yeah, let's make it interactive. We'll give you a sentence maybe like you'd see it in a textbook.
And your challenge is to think. How would a native speaker probably say this in a quick, casual chat?
Ready? Okay, sentence number 1 is, I am going to the store.
Nice and grammatical, textbook perfect. Now, take just a second. How would that sound more natural, more relaxed?
Pause.
Okay. What do you think? The way you'd most likely hear it is.
I'm going to go to the store.
I'm going to the store. See, I am becomes, I'm going to becomes gone. It just flows a bit more easily in conversation.
Rolls off the tongue faster.
Yeah.
Okay, second one for you. The sentence is, it is raining very heavily.
Again, perfectly correct, but maybe a bit wordy for everyday talk. How could you say that more naturally?
Boss. Got an idea? A very common, natural way to say this is simply...
It's pouring.
It's pouring. Much shorter, more direct. Uses that strong verb pouring. Feels much more like something someone would actually shout out the window.
Exactly. More idiomatic.
So, wrapping things up from this deep dive into the hidden rules, what's the main takeaway?
I think it's that English communication, especially informal talk, often values connection and efficiency over absolute grammatical perfection. Right. Grammar is important. Foundational even. Especially in writing in formal situations.
Definitely. But understanding how and why native speakers sometimes adjust the rules in conversation can really help you sound more natural and feel more confident.
It's like you need to know the rules solidly first.
Master the basics, absolutely.
And then you can start to understand the exceptions, the nuances, the contexts where things get a bit more flexible.
It's about developing that feel for the language beyond just the textbook definitions.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on, thinking about all this. How much emphasis should be placed on strict grammar versus just effective, clear, natural-sounding communication, especially in different scenarios like work versus talking with friends?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Finding that balance. It's a fascinating tightrope to walk.